Hey, what's up? We're in the next part, so please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings. In that part, I was speaking about this weird little thing that's going on all over the show that's causing black women, especially black women, it might be across the board, but it's been my experience in particular, being a black woman, what I've endured at the hands of especially black men. I haven't been treated this way by white men in any other race of man, and I am not a woman who has only ever been pursued by black men. That's what you must understand. So I feel as if though I'm coming with a relatively unbiased observation here. The study that I have made, I've been, for instance, when I was working at MTN, there was this one white guy that had a crush on me, and he was falling all over the show every time I was in the environment, very observably so, to a point where he even struggled to finally just say something. He went through a friend of mine to try and get her to drop a hint, but I couldn't even catch the hint because he was just always so clumsy around me. He could not speak to me. So I've had that. When I was in high school, I got pursued by quite a few Indian guys, and they slipped me long letters writing to me just how their undying love is this and that, something I've never ever experienced from black men before. So when I say this is like a black thing, it's only because I've never in my life been treated like this by any other race worth of a man that has ever wanted me. There's been a marked difference. So I feel as if though it is a problem in the black community. Reverse psychology, a man acting like I ain't all that in a bag of chips when he thinks I am. I've only ever experienced it from black men, and it's unfortunate because all the guys that were outside of my race that did ask me out, I didn't date them. I should have. I might have experienced a different thing, and so therefore had less issues. I don't know with how I remember the dating life, but then again, recreational dating is a problem. Gee, I shouldn't have done it at all. But black men need to get their act together. They do. Like you all need. And the sad thing is, it's not gonna help them to move over and marry white women when we are fed up. Because that's what they're now doing. They are going on right ahead to also frustrate white women. They're going on right ahead to frustrate Indian women, other races of women that they feel as if though we are too angry for them to sit us out. And then they like move laterally to other ladies. These women, these white ladies themselves will come back and be like, whoa, this is how I get treated by black men. Like, I've only ever been with white dudes all my life, and this is my experience with a black man. They can come and give their story. They can come and explain what's going on. You may or may not want to validate it or not, just in case you get called racist or whatever, but examples that you can see very starkly in the entertainment industry with this happening, where black men are just very typically treating women like rubbish, even when they're not black. Like so basically, like their imagination that transferring over to other women is going to solve the issues that they have with black women. Evidence is that the issue was with them because of how they end up treating the white women. You remember that soccer, it wasn't soccer, in the US they call it football player, I forgot his name, that like was throwing his like white girlfriend and with a baby right there across the television. Like she was just this like rag doll to him that he could just like do whatever with. You see it with the Kardashians, you know, the ones that end up with black men. They experience the black girlfriend typicality. Like they go through exactly what black women go through when they're dating black men. It's not like white women and their tranquility and their calm state now, because they're not as mad as us, changes them. It doesn't. There was a white chick at MTN that was about to get married to a black man, and for the life of me I didn't understand why she was marrying him, and her issues, her problems were literally hand to glove the same as ours. And for the life of me, like why she accepted the proposal, I couldn't understand it. She thought that maybe if they get married things will change, but she had so many problems with this guy, so many. And for me it was like, dude, like okay, you know what, love is love, do you, but you gotta get out. Like literally you gotta get out. And well, by the time I left, she was still going ahead with the wedding. I didn't leave MTN. I was fired without cause. But by the time that happened, she was still going ahead with the wedding, and I suspect that she not only was she going ahead with the wedding, but she was heavily pregnant. So I suspect now today she's married to that guy or divorced. I don't know, but like I'm just trying to like make a point here that their migration over to other races to deal with us is not even helping the women. Their character, the issue is just generational. Perhaps even I could say generational. All I can say is generational, because why would they all be so similar? And no matter where they marry, it doesn't matter who they marry, celebrities or not, black, white, colored, Indian, they all suffer the same fate. they put women through literally the same things. So this ain't even about crying about race or whatever. Because white girls, like, if they're honest, they would also just come forward and confess if they're married to black men. Not all of them, of course, because they're not all just monsters, all right? They experience a particular thing. So now I'm calling this out because this guy that came into my life for all of 5 seconds while the US, before he acted the fool that he finally did act like, I had spoken so very many times about my fears concerning black men. So many of them. I told him that this is what I've experienced, this is what I've gone through. Not only did I tell it to him verbally with him listening to me, but I also wrote about it in my blog, just on the topics, and I implored him to go and read my content. He knew what it is that basically was my pet peeve in black men, and I expected that just because I gave him a heads up, at least he would try and fit the mold, and he did exactly what it is that was my biggest fear. So now he's just magnified PTSD in me. When you walk in something that somebody has said, this is the thing that really kind of grates the living daylights out of me, and you're trying to be with that woman, you would imagine you're trying to work on the fact that what you recognize in yourself as she is calling it out. Instead, this dude just like hand to glove walked in the typicality that I have just above highlighted, and I was like, if at all you're going to walk in that level of typicality despite having been warned in advance, it must mean that you don't have control over it. It must mean that it is a demon, a possession of sorts. It's something that has arrested your members such that you can't help but do it, in which case you need deliverance. And that's what I told him. I was like, whatever it is that is in you, it's this thing that's like slaying into eternal condemnation black men. Get it fixed, get it right. Like, you need to repent and give your life to Jesus so he can extract that beast, that monster out of you. It is generational. It is obviously generational because it comes in the black genome. And sons in particular born. I told him to get delivered. I sent him literally to a deliverance minister. I even recommended one to him since he's in the United States of America, and he didn't listen to me. He just walked in a typicality. So mind you, when a man doesn't want deliverance, when a man is shown the issue that he has and he insists on continuing in this way because it's his way or the highway because he's Frank Sinatra, as a woman you're better off avoiding it. So black women, you are especially in danger because you are more likely to marry black men than any other single race out there. And the depression, just the exorbitant amount of depression that you stand to feel in a marriage to a man that is that unyielding, like how recalcitrant they are, how rebellious, how solidly just unmoving they are in this regard, is going to cause so much depression in women. It is going to cause women to feel like God doesn't care about them. It's going to cause women to feel as if though, there's nothing that they can do. Except the Lord made it clear that, if you wait for him, he will give you the desires of your heart. And if also you insist on being with a black man, he will send you one that got it and was happy to be humbled to whatever it is that the Lord would humble them to go through in terms of deliverance, in terms of sanctification. That one that would admit, however uncomfortably so, that this is an issue, and so fix it. But if he's too lazy or too stubborn or too bent on his ways to ever agree with you, that's still misogyny reigning in his members in the worst way. He still wants to be right, and there is no place in the kingdom of heaven for that level of pride, for a refusal to embrace correction. There is no space in the kingdom of heaven for that. What has happened in my life is evidence of the fact that men are stubborn. They're stubborn. You have a perfectly gifted woman, godly, prepared to do all that is needed in order to fulfill her purpose on earth as a wife, and you still treated her like trash because she is holding to her guns and her horses on what she asked from God, and you still want to force her to marry the kind of thing that you have been warped into, the far cry from what God will have you be thing that you are. You are still insisting that it comes into her life instead of you getting your act together, that you might be, counted worthy to inherit a daughter that indeed a man upon coming into her life would say, this at last is bone of my bone. If my daughter has sought my face to chisel out the dirt out of her, why would I want to give her over to a man that is unprepared to be sanctified in that regard? So the level of stubbornness in our men is such that they don't even want correction because they feel like they don't need it. And especially if it is coming from a woman, which is why my ministry is not even for men. It never has been. It's for women. I'm just trying to counsel women, since there is such a spirit of rebellion in men, to just wait on God. And as black women, much as you might imagine, once you go black, you can't go back. You need to be, if you want to get married, some of y'all embrace the possibility that you perhaps might have to let go of your picket fence desires and longings for a black husband. Some of y'all have to just understand that maybe the Lord might give you over to an Asian man or a white man or an Indian man or whatever, there's no room first and foremost for racism in the kingdom of heaven. But if you can't fathom yourself, even though you're not racist, but it's just what you're used to, and I was like that. It's just what you're used to. It's just what do you call this? It's all you've ever been attracted to. I told you guys that I've not only been pursued all throughout my life by black men, but I've only ever dated black men, meaning that I never accepted the proposals or the advancements of any other race of man. And this was because I just always had this thing that once you go black, you can't go back. I just loved them so much that I could never ever be with anyone but a black man. But then I came to Christ and I realized that it's all dumb. To think that way is dumb, because you don't know what in the world of heaven you might be missing out on. So I've since abandoned that mindset, and so right now I'm just like, whoever the Lord will set apart for me, then by all means. I don't even think I'm going to be getting married until the rapture happens, because I believe I've communicated this multiple times before, that I'm going to be blessed in the millennial reign of Jesus Christ in this regard. But the issue right now within our community is such that black women have got to start pretty much not doing what black men have done. Like, black men have gone on right ahead to move laterally. They think that the way to deal with issues they have with black women is to be with women of other races, right? Very irresponsibly so. There's nothing wrong with being with a white woman as a black man, but if you're dating a white woman or you're marrying a white woman because you're tired of black women or because you want to get at black women, that's immature, right? So I'm just saying right now, don't say that you're mad at black men so you're gonna be with white men, because then that's just trying to get back at black men. Just wait on the Lord for a man that comes, and trust that he will give you all the desires of your heart, even if he does not come phenotypically on the outside, in other words, in the package that you expected him to come, because that's how your blessing is going to be missed out. Neglect racism at the door, or inclinations towards thinking in a racist fashion, because that just might mean singlehood for the rest of your days. If you're waiting for a Prince Charming that has that Idris Elba look, you get to desire that, but if it doesn't come and something else comes, you need to have your heart made ready for the possibility of it. Otherwise you will pass it up because you're busy dictating to God how to provide for you. There is a real big problem in the black community with our men right now, and love is a staunch requirement by women. The Bible says women must respect their husbands, but husbands must love their wives. Love is just so important to women, and we are not getting it from black men. Not all of them, please. I'm not generalizing. What am I trying to say right now? Conclude in your mind whenever I speak black men that I am not generalizing. I'm speaking about just what I've experienced, the conglomerate that appears to be pursuing me. Okay, I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying what I've experienced. Like, love is important, and black men are currently not giving it to black women. And if you want to be loved comfortably without imagining things are going to fall off the shelf, you sometimes just need to realize or embrace the prospect of any other race worth of a man. Anyway, let's just move past that whole thing. This whole communication that I am having at present, this highlight that I didn't even expect to be in so many parts. I'm talking about it, you guys, because of what ultimately has happened. Deliverance of my person from a black man. Again, it is not the first time I've been delivered from a black man since coming to Jesus. It could be maybe the 12th or the 13th or the 15th time. When you have to keep on getting delivered from the same kind of spirit in a man, it is at that stage then that you need to start giving counsel to whoever is around, happy to listen, as to how to deal. It's like, how do you create a theory? How do you create a theory from a hypothesis that is testable and tried and true? You make observations over a formulated hypothesis over very many months and years, gathering insights and data that inside a vacuum or even outside of one are consistently producing the same results. Then on that day, you have got an observable, scientific, basically proven as such, theory. You create a theory from a formulated hypothesis that you have tested over and over and over and over again. And so therefore put yourself in a position to be an educator or an instructor in a new empirically investigated observation. And I believe therefore that I am in a position right now to train or teach against this brand spanking new issue that has been tried and tested over 12 whole years. It qualifies as a medium-term study. It is not longitudinal by any means, or maybe it could be, given that I've also kind of gathered the insights since I was a teenager, but I'm only counting. And by teenager, that was from the time I started dating. But I am, just to be fair, I am counting from when I got saved. I got born again in 2011, and when I got saved, that is when all things were made equal. The theory environment stayed consistent, but I was made equal. In other words, I got saved. So the qualms or the issues that dwell inside black women, if at all they were responsible for why black men are like this, then I guess everybody would just be in this giant cesspool of insanity, and nobody could ever come out on the other side being corrected, because no one wants to take counsel and do differently. Everybody's just fighting and throwing their toys out the cot, and no one wants to listen to sound counsel. On that day, there's nothing that can be done for you guys. It's over. But how you prove that this is not an issue with black women, but with black men, is if you isolate a variable and you keep it steady, you keep it consistent while everything else, so this variable is equal while everything else continues to do what it does. You leave the ecosystem the way that it is, but you change one variable. And so whatever this variable, this constant is, whatever whatever it is that this constant does, right? Because it stays constant, as a result of it constantly staying that way, you can therefore conclude that these ecosystems that continue to do a particular thing in spite of the constant are the issue. The problem is this: initially, it was believed that all of us were a mess. Black men were misogynistic. Black women are hard-headed, stiff-necked, constantly just rapping, and they literally shoot themselves in the foot perpetually because they won't stop talking. And they also cannot calm down even when there's nothing to fight about. So when then you go and you grab, you could have just grabbed black men in this instant and made a constant out of them, was taken one in this ecosystem and made a constant out of them, or taking a black woman. But in my case, I was born a female, so I can only ever make a constant out of the female in this equation. And redemption happened in 2011 for me and created out of me a constant. In other words, in spite of what history throws at me, and in spite of what is the typicality that I ought to turn out to be, I was the exception to the norm because God transformed me. So the Lord made me refuse to embrace societal norms as dictating of what my future ought outcome be, or of what the outcome of my future ought be. God changed me and made me still intrigued by the prospect of biblical womanhood and femininity. He made me a good girl, a Proverbs 31 woman. He made me celibate. He made me not walk in the typicality of baby mama drama vibes. So I'm not the baby mama of some dude that I didn't end up with. I am not some contentious wife of a man, and I'm just so typical black women near Kenya. I am a constant. Do you understand? I am the exception at this point. And in spite of me literally being everything that these men have wanted, a peaceable and a quiet spirit that is precious in the sight of the Lord, non-argumentative and pious, waiting on God, happy to embrace submission, all that jazz, all these things that a lot of black men claim only white girls can give, like sweet, being coy, all that just girliness, no androgynous, hard knock, fiery spirit wanting to take men over because I'm an independent woman. I was even thrown into poverty to be so needful and such a damsel in distress that they would be in a position to come and rescue me and take care of me, with me having no job, doing nothing at all, while they're the ones that are catering to everybody's needs in the ecosystem. Yeah, all that became my life. I was the constant in this study. However, all of these other variables were just left to do what it is that they would do in the climate now of a constant. And yet I have had, like I said, about 12 to 13 to 15. I can't, guys, I might not even be able to count them on my 10 fingers and toes. I have been afflicted in the worst way by black men in the exact same way for all of the 12 years of me being a constant. All of them. In the very same way that they treated me prior to my redemption in 2011. So like I said, I've been gathering this data since I was a teenager. But as a teenager, all the way up until the age of 26, I was lost. I was a sinner. So essentially, I was also with the capacity to be annoying as a black woman. Angry, backbiting, constantly just popping babies for some irresponsible men, and never get married, and proliferating irresponsibility, and wada wada all over the show. I could have like just done whatever black women apparently, allegedly, typically do. But the Lord put a break on that, a chock-a-block in 2011, and saved me. When he saved me, I became different. I became biblical in the way I do life, and biblical womanhood is the best thing since sliced bread to men who still want respect and honor and all that jazz. Women who respect their roles, women who are happy to even leave their jobs to take care of the family, women that are against the grain of feminism in this world are rare and richly desired in the black community. I know that for a fact, right? So I became that girl. I was actually actively planning on quitting my job once I got married. I was not planning on being the super hard knock strong androgynous career woman for the rest of my days, because I chose family over career. I told you guys that, but I was wrenched out of my career while I was still a single woman before that could even happen. So now in the squalor and the poverty that I'm living in, more so than men who want a stay-at-home wife, then be happy to dote over me and take care of me without being hostile and abusive and forceful and manipulative and insistent that I rely on no one but them. So a healthy, like what do you call this thing? Housewife, like a healthy housewife lifestyle. Not one where you're in it gankani. This dude tried to force me to be a housewife without an ability to make any other money so he could be the only one taking care of me. That's abusive. But when a woman is a healthy housewife, if she's got a side gig selling t-shirts on Amazon, that's not something her husband should hate. But this dude wanted me making no money. That's abuse. I have endured that kind of insanity as a constant, like I said, right? The exact same mistreatment that I endured from 16 years old when I started dating, 16, 17, to 26, 10 whole years. And now we are 26 and a half, going into, I'm 38, so 12 years now, okay? And still the same thing, albeit changing. That is a proven hypothesis. Because we changed a variable. We made a variable constant. Do you understand? That's what we did. We changed a variable, and so therefore proved that men are crazy. The black men at this present moment are the ones basanyang. They're the ones that are crazy because they treated me the exact same way despite me changing in flavor with what they desired, in tandem with what they wanted. Women must always be at home. Women must cook, bake, clean, have babies. And women must submit. I was prepared to be that girl, and they still very typically abused. Very typically. So essentially, I would have suffered from Stockholm syndrome instead of just being a happy stay-at-home wife. I, therefore, am in a position, I imagine, to teach on the matter, in the sense that it is a theory now that has been tried and tested, and so therefore it ought be in a textbook. And if it is a theory, there needs to be a solution to how to deal with it. Deliverance needs to be embarked on here by men. And if they will not get the deliverance, there is no future for us as black women. There is no future. The evidence is now gawking, it's glaring, it's stark, and it is saying this. It is saying that black women are in danger until such time that black men embrace help, until they get spiritual help, not therapists, they need redemption, because that's the only thing that's going to help them love women as Christ loved the church. And like I said in my earlier parts, a woman that has been calloused by sorrow can be fixed by love. And so if men were to love us, black women would recover. So they are the ones that need to change. And if they won't, then nobody's going to be okay. Nobody is ever going to be okay in the black community. And the only way that black women will be able to escape this level of insanity and insensitivity is if they marry outside of their race. Which is unfortunate for black men, because in the long run, it's going to make them look like they're monsters, menacing ones at that cannot be trusted to be responsible with the lives of women and children. And so prove all the horrific accusations against the black community that have been slapping us all throughout these ages. Prove everybody that has it in for us that we are rubbish. I say that I am a tested theory because I've been a constant, yet still so severely abused. So many men have put me in a position to suffer. They used witchcraft to make sure I lose my job, never be able to get another one again, try to force me to marry them, refused to pursue lovingly, but chose rather to use witchcraft to make me like the, what do you call this thing? Like a lapdog, something that is constantly just panting its tongue, wanting for attention, from its owner, its master. They try to make out of me like Pavlov's dog. I used that analogy before, salivating after meat. But I'm Christian now. I'm born again. Can't get manipulated by witchcraft. I'm the exception to the norm, meaning that I don't react to so classical conditioning. I don't react to Pavlov's meat being thrown in my direction. I'm waiting for love. I'm waiting for honor. I'm waiting to be regarded as a helper suitable, not as a slave or a maid for a man, but as somebody that is his partner in this thing that we are doing. As the wind beneath his wings in a godly, responsible fashion, a man that looks at biblical submission of women in the way that he ought look at it, and not out of context where he uses it as a rod to whip a woman into shape. That's what I'm waiting on the Lord for. That's what I asked for. And the fact that I have literally been born again for 12 years, almost 12 years, and no such man has rocked up, evidences that they still consider me entirely unacceptable despite being biblical in my womanhood. Meaning that what they want is a robot. What they want is a lapdog. What they want is Pavlov's dogs. What they want is a woman that can be conditioned to shut up, do nothing, be unprepared, to move left or right lest the husband should be, if the husband does not approve. A woman that cannot have her own money that she's making. A woman that cannot make a decision after raising children for 18 years to see if she can't go back to practicing law. A man that's just going to want to take care of you for the rest of your life. And you can't do that at all. Going to the point of spiritually manipulating things so you can never get a job no matter how hard you try. That is not biblical submission in the presence of biblical patriarchy or leadership by men. That is some tyrant that is coercive and controlling over somebody made in the image of God that should have leg room to use their gifts and talents. Otherwise they will stand before God and be judged since our talents are not being used. That is somebody making a decision that somebody should not live anymore, other than just for him, when we are to live for Jesus, not so much even for each other, but for Jesus. And so when you grab a woman's talents and you bury them in the ground, you on that day are condemning that woman. You are putting her in a position to dishonor God. All I asked the Lord for was for a doting husband. And I got told, if you want me to love you, you're going to be my servant. By, like I said, 12, 13, 14, perhaps maybe over 20 men in the past 12 years since coming to Christ have put some witchcraft, all of which had some form of coercive, controlling effect or factor to them. I've had men who didn't want me working. I've had men who wanted me to be with them using witchcraft instead of them just lovingly pursuing me so that I can know that they have feelings for me and maybe perhaps inspire feelings in me because of the way that they're treating me so well. I have had men try to block me from ever breaking through. You know, I've had so many. It is not all of them that I've been with or even given a shot, but it has been literally almost about 20, if not more, men, black men, that I've tried to force my hand in some way using witchcraft. If it was not witchcraft, they have tried to keep me sullen, buried, until I finally agree to marry one of them. I've had so many dreams of me falling pregnant before I finally work again that I might be controlled, tamed through a child. This is a woman that was more than happy to submit. So if at all I was more than happy to submit, if you're not satisfied with that state, it means there is some other version of me that you desire, and it is not godly. It is a puppet on a string, and the Lord never intended for women to be puppets on a string. Let's move to the next part.